Hello and welcome to lesson 13. Today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. So up until this point we've been doing mostly math stuff that is strictly in the realm of pure math. So from here on we're going to be trying to do some more application things. So we're going to be looking at how to apply these maths to the sciences. So what you're going to find here is there's going to be a lot less high concept stuff in terms of math. So like limits were probably some of the highest level pure math that you're going to look at in this program. So from here on out, a lot of things are going to be much simpler on the algebra side of things as compared to limits. Limits are pretty, they're kind of unique. All right, so we're going to start off by looking at the metric system conversions again, just real quick. So in the metric system, there are three main prefixes that we look at. We look at kilo, centi, and milli. And the reason is because those are in the thousand. So kilo means 1,000. So if you have, let's say, a meter, then a kilometer is going to be 1,000 of those. And 1,000 is one of those numbers where most people can kind of, at the edge of their understanding, be like, okay, so you have 1,000 of this thing. That's a lot. And they understand it as a lot. And if you tell someone, a million of a thing, that's usually outside of their immediate scope of thought. So it's like a million. Well, I don't even. How many is a million? That's so many. I don't know exactly how much that would be. The same goes for millimeters. So milli is 1,000th. So that's if you cut something into 1,000 pieces. So we understand those would be very tiny pieces. So that most people can comprehend that pretty quickly. Centi is if you cut it into 100 pieces. Most people can understand cutting it into 100 pieces a lot better. They will estimate much better. But again, the whole point of the metric system, as we discussed in a previous lesson, I think it was one of the first 5, we talked about how the metric system is really here to help us understand a sense of scale. But we can convert between these metrics by multiplying and dividing by the powers of 10. So anytime you have to move up, you need to divide. So let me put it to you this way. So if we have 1 meter and we need to write that in kilometers, that means we need to divide by 1,000. So let's go to the board. So I can give you a better idea of what that is. So let's say that I have 300 meters. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some unit conversion. So we want to end this off in kilometers. So what I need to do is I need to line up my units so that meters is over 1. So meters will cancel. If I put them on top and bottom, this meter will cancel with this meter. And so I want to have kilometers on top. That way the unit that I'm left with after I do this multiplication is going to just be kilometers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the numbers that do the transition from meters to kilometers. So for every 1,000 meters, we have 1 kilometer. So if we do this multiplication, if we multiply across top, across bottom, we're going to wind up with 300 over 1,000 kilometers. So obviously that's not a nice, neat number. So what we're going to do is we're going to cancel some zeros. So we got 3 over 10. Another way to write 3 over 10 would be 0.3. So we have 0.3 kilometers. We started with 300 meters. So this is how we'd go about using that chart that we had over here for the metric system with unit conversion that we would actually be doing. We would line them up so that our units match up, and then we'll find the equivalencies between the two. So what's the equivalency between meter and kilometer? Well, if we go to the chart, we see that 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. So whenever we go over here to our fraction, we already know that meter is going to be on bottom because we need the unit to cancel. So we know we'll put 1,000 meters on the bottom. We know we want to go to kilometers. So we'll put a kilometer up on top. That'll allow us to go ahead and cancel. And then we get to the final unit that we want, which of course in this case happens to be kilometers. There are other kinds of units that you can find, and we'll go over how to do those. But for right now, that's how we go back and forth when we're just inside the metric system. And the metric system's nice about this. It allows us to convert really easily. So next up, we're going to look at unit conversion as a whole. So I think the title of this Khan Academy video says it pretty straightforward. We're going to treat our units as algebra. We're going to treat them algebraically. So as I was pointing out when we were switching to the metric system, whenever we're trying to convert units, we always want to use the units as sort of an algebraic shorthand. So let's say somebody out there is going 30 kilometers per hour. So they're going 30 kilometers an hour, that's a speed. And let's say at the end of the day, we want to know, well, how fast would they be going in feet per second? So we want to go to feet per second. Okay, so the top is different, the bottom's different. We are definitely going to have to switch some things up. So let's start by switching up the top. So we want to go from kilometers to feet. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know the transition from kilometers to feet off the top of my head, but I do know how many meters are in a kilometer. So I'm going to go kilometers to meters first. And then I want to go from meters to feet because I do know the transition from meters to feet. So I can go so you can go as many of these as you need. As long as you keep your numbers consistent, you'll be fine. So what's going to happen here is kilometer is going to cancel kilometer, meter is going to cancel meter, and then we'll just be left with feet on top. Now, I don't want to scratch out my units just yet. I want to make sure I get my numbers in there and get those right first. But that's going to be what happens on the algebra side of things. So 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. If you need to go back and check the metric system chart, you can always feel free to do that whenever we have a metric measurement. Next up, we're going from 1 meter, and if you're not sure about this one, I recommend you look it up and write it down, or print yourself off a conversion chart. Conversion charts are meant to help you with this process. So if you don't have one, I would recommend looking one up on the internet or finding one. If you can, print it out, write it down, do whatever you got to do. Just make sure that you have one in the background that you can work with. So anyway, 1 meter is equal to 3.28 feet, approximately 3.28. There's a little bit more to that decimal, but we are just going to round it to the second decimal place for right now. So that means that now, if we cancel all of these the way we should algebraically, we're going to be left with feet, which is awesome. But we're going to be left with feet over hours, and we definitely don't want to go for hours. What we're going to do is now we're going to take hours, and we're going to move hours to the top. We're going to do that over here. So since hours is on top now, it's on top and bottom, that means that I could cancel those units. But I want to change hours into seconds. Now, if you don't know how to go directly from hours to seconds, that's okay. We can always go from hours to minutes first. And then, of course, on the next fraction, we can go from minutes to seconds. So, or minutes to seconds. So we write seconds with an S. So basically, if we want to change the bottom unit, we need to put it on the top. So 1 hour, as I'm sure you're aware, has 60 minutes in it, and 1 minute has 60 seconds in it. So this is going to be a big, big number on both sides. We're going to have a lot of numbers being multiplied, but that's okay. We don't have to do it all at once in our heads. We just need to make sure we lined our stuff up properly. So we know that our final unit is going to be feet per second. So feet per second. So we got 1,000 on top. So we got 1,000 times 3.28. So 3.28 times the 30 that we started with. And then it's multiplied by 1. So we don't have to do the times 1 because times 1 won't change anything. Meanwhile, on bottom, we've got 60 times 60. By the way, if you're wondering what was on bottom of the 30, it's 30 over 1. Anytime you get a whole number, it's just that number over 1. So, 1 times 1 times 1, and then we times by 60 twice. So we've got times 60 times 60. So if we multiply all this out, that'll give us, so we got 3,280 multiplied by 30. All of that divided by, so 60 squared. So 6 times 6 is 36. We have 2 zeros. So this 0 will cancel. That 0 will cancel. So now we've got 328 times 3 over 36. So 328 times 3. That's 24. Sorry if this seems a little slow. 6, 7, 8. I like to go ahead and just do all of my numbers in my head. That way I can make sure I've lined them up properly. And also so you guys, as you're watching, can see me working through these steps. So 984 divided by 36, that would be our answer. So that's how many feet we cover in that many seconds. So in 36 seconds, we can cover 984 feet. Now, obviously, we could convert that to a decimal using a calculator. Obviously, there are shorter ways that we can write that. But what's important is that this is the correct measurement. And we know that it's going to be correct because we lined up our units so that they canceled properly. As long as our units are canceling properly, if we plug in the correct numbers for this multiplication, we're going to get the right answer. And that's what's most important. If you have the fraction and you're not sure if the fraction's correct, that's okay. You can always go to a calculator and then, punch in the numbers. You do 984 divided by 36. That'll give you the decimal that you're looking for. As long as you've got the right numbers in the right spot and you line them up using your units, you will be just fine whenever you are doing unit conversion. And this comes up a lot in chemistry. So chemistry is the biggest place where this pops up over and over and over and over and over again. If you're going to be doing biochemistry or biology, or you're looking at, you want to get into med school or something like that, I would really recommend on the math side of things, making sure you understand how to do unit conversion with conversion charts, because you're gonna wind up doing that a lot, even if it's only for chemistry before you start moving into other things. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and get back to the presentation now. So that's unit conversion. And that's going to be the end of this video. So if you want to go ahead and try to do the converting the speed of 30 meters per second into miles per hour, go right ahead. If you don't feel like it, that's okay. We'll be going over it in the synchronous hours. I would recommend you go ahead and give that a try and do the independent practice. And again, if you're interested in chemistry, or you know that you want to do something science related and you're going to need chemistry, then go ahead and get some extra practice in on unit conversion if you can. I promise you, save you a lot of time in the long run. And so anyway, that's the end of this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.